Now, as Adam Schefter is reporting, that after arranging for Colin Kaepernick to come for a workout with them in Seattle, the Seahawks then postponed that trip after, according to sources, he declined to say whether he would stop kneeling during the national anthem. The update on this story as of just an hour or so ago is that the Seahawks, who as of yesterday did not have a single quarterback on their roster besides Russell Wilson, have signed a backup quarterback in Stephen Morris. He's from the U, and he was on the Washington practice squad. So certainly they could still certainly use quarterback help, but they did add another quarterback to the roster. So there is so much that has been said about Colin Kaepernick, and more will be said. I want to go inside locker rooms because he has a pretty tough decision to make now in front of him. It seems pretty clear that if he wants to get back in the National Football League, he's going to have to at least seriously consider no longer kneeling during the national anthem, which is something that obviously is extremely important to him. How will that be received in the locker room if he makes that arrangement and then he signs with Seattle? How will that be received in the locker room?
I'll say this right off the top. 75% of the league of the NFL is African-American players. Guarantee you, most of the players are like, listen, what you've done to this point to shine a light on a situation that we, as in our community, feel is a problem, we applaud you for that. Some people, if he comes back and if he doesn't stand for if he stands for the national anthem, some people might call him a sellout. Guarantee a lot of guys will feel like you've done more in what you've done. There's no way you can call a Colin Kaepernick a sellout. If you want to come back, we're gonna accept you with open arms, because at the end of the day, Greeny, as a player, all I want is, can you help me win? That's all I care about. If you're the Seattle Seahawks, you have no backup quarterback. A guy like Colin Kaepernick, he has similar skill set as a Russell Wilson. He's not the player that Russell Wilson is, but they have similar skill set. It makes too much sense for a guy like that to come on the roster. Here's a really good question. How would Russell Wilson feel about this? Because here's a guy who's a polarizing figure as your backup quarterback. Sometimes these quarterbacks can be sensitive about who their backups are and who's on the roster. I would love to know what Russell Wilson would feel about this.
Well, we know he's not in the league because he chose to protest the anthem. And I wanted to put some stats on wax before I got into my commentary. So since he entered the league in 2011, better completion percentage than Andrew Luck, better touchdown to interception ratio than Kirk Cousins, better record than Eli Manning, better QBR than Alex Smith. So we clearly know this isn't about football. And since he chose to opt out of his contract, there have been multiple teams that signed a lot of different quarterbacks. The Texans and the Cardinals come to mind, 6 and 5. They chose to sign two quarterbacks that have never thrown a football in the NFL. So let's just put that out on the table why he's not in the game. I lived this firsthand in the NBA with Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. I was a teammate of his when he decided during the anthem he was going to do his personal protest. And a pro sports locker room is not a monolithic. It will be divided in one way, shape, or form, and here's why. And no shots at Russell Wilson, I'm a huge fan of his. But what's going to happen is he's viewed as more clean cut, more corporate. Colin Kaepernick is going to be viewed as more of a revolutionary, more of a leader of a cause. And so because of that, there will be people that have to choose sides. And not because of either one of the individuals, it's just a collection of people in the locker room come from different backgrounds. Some people don't care about political situations. Others, like you mentioned, just want to win football games. And so from that, the issue for Colin that he did choose to kneel about is still prevalent in our society. So he can't walk into the office with the general manager and the coach and make them a promise of what he's going to do, because none of us know what we're going to do when something happens, especially about something that we're really passionate about. And he's so passionate about it that it cost him his career. And so I understand the position that he's taken, and I applaud the fact that he's sticking to his guns.
This is tricky because I don't want to pretend to get in the minds of anyone and say what you're supposed to do, but I am curious to see what the next step in this are. There's a part of me that said, oh, the suits want to ask me if I'm going to kneel. I'm going to lie. And I'm going to say, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. And then I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do when the time comes. The other thing is, what is the next step in this? Do you continue to not play football and this continues to be a storyline that eventually, unfortunately, fades away? Or do we figure out what the next step is? Because between the platform that he now has and the amount of reach that he has via social media and his foundation and all the people that follow him, there are ways to say, look, I'm going to kneel. I'm going to do whatever, or I'm going to stay in the locker room during the anthem. But during this period, and while this game is going on Sunday afternoon, these are causes. You can donate. You can go volunteer. You can go do so that it stays alive, and that the reason why the kneeling happened in the first place is never forgotten, and we continue to figure out how do we fix things. I don't know. I would hate to say that he doesn't ever play football again because of such a stupid mentality that we've somehow gotten ourselves into. And I also understand the pride aspect of this. You don't want to give in to the people who just shot so many venomous tweets and posters and the things that they have been saying, instead of listening to why and trying to turn it into some sort of anti-military stance, which it never was. You don't want to give them any way either. So it's tricky, but I want to figure out what the next thing is.
Well, I mean, but here's one thing that's very clear is both sides are kind of dug in. We know the owners are like, if you're going to play, these are basically the conditions without them really saying it. Everything is pointing to you will have to stand or some variation of that in order for you to be on our roster.
A lot of that has to do with positioning. He's a quarterback. Normally, that's the face of the franchise, the person that gets advertised the most, promoted the most. And so that's what's left him to be ostracized. Also, for me, my favorite athletes were socially and politically conscious as a child of the 70s. The Ali Summit is one of my favorite pictures, led by Jim Brown, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bill Russell. And so the platform of an athlete, when people say, why use football as a vehicle for your personal protest, this is when everybody's watching. People aren't necessarily watching me on Monday, my day off. People are watching me at my place of business. So therefore, I'm using this opportunity to try to spark change.
Once again, it looked like he was going to have an opportunity at least to work out for the Seahawks. We'll see if that still does happen. It was what everyone was talking about yesterday, and we will keep an eye on it if it develops. They did sign, again, Stephen Morris overnight. We'll take a short break here on Get Up.